I'll start. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you've come. And can you hear me okay? Are we good? All right. Uh, and we're just going to try to work on our tapestry. Those of you that were at Conclave, we created a tapestry, and I've got some pics in the PowerPoint. So we all are unique in all different ways. And so we're going to try to figure out how we can put that uniqueness on an application. And before we get started, I do want to recognize Sonia Meyer, who is the Educational Foundation Chair, and that is for which all the scholarships and everything comes from. So Sonia, would you like to say anything before we get started?
Sure. Hello, everyone. And I'm so glad so many of you are joining us this evening. Well, it's this evening for me. Some of you, it's nighttime. I'm way out in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm in the Pacific time zone. It's still just late afternoon for me. So welcome to all of you. And I'm so glad there are so many of you that have tuned into this. I think I have the best group to ever belong to, and that is the foundation, Educational Foundation Board. And being chair of the board of directors is just pretty awesome and fun. I have told members of our local chapter, Zeta chapter, that this is probably the paybacks I get for having so many of our members receive Phi U national scholarships in the past. And it's just really exciting and fun. And I do hope as many of you will apply as possible. So, Diana, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay. While we're doing this, if everyone would go into the chat and just say who you are and what chapter you're from, so we can Melissa can sort of have a list of who all is here. It looks like we have 37 people in, so that is wonderful and so excited. But if you would go into the chat and put your information in there so that we have that listed. So thank you very much for doing that. Also, again, I feel like I'm a facilitator with this. So if you have a question, feel free to jump in. I have some assistants helping me, and hopefully they can answer questions, and Melissa can answer questions, or Sonia can answer questions as we go through the process of the presentation. So I guess we might as well, we might as well go ahead and get started. So Melissa.
Yes.
And we are forming it, going to go ahead and use it, like I said before, the tapestry theme. And I think you can see me up in the little corner if you've got my picture up there. But remember that tapestries can be many different ways. We weave fabrics, and you can. I remember I was in Girl Scouts years ago when I was real little. We made weaves with these little charts. So they can be, and everything is unique, different colors, different thoughts. It's like each one of us, we have different characteristics that make us unique. And I know we can put that onto the scholarship and fellowship and award applications. So hopefully you'll stand out when the committees are choosing you. So we're going to create a tapestry with that application. So Melissa. The next slide. Okay. And using the theme that Susan developed, which is wonderful, about weaving our future through Phi U. Your scholarship would be your future. And what you want to do is to work for your career, get your degree, get your experience. And so we're going to weave that. And we began weaving it. That's one of the pictures that we were weaving all of our colors in there. And let's think about your individual tapestry is your application. That is you, and that's going to talk about you. And so think about what is unique to yourself. So, okay, Melissa. think did we skip? That's okay. I'll go ahead and go over this one.
Okay. It looks like that's the next slide I've got. I'm not sure.
Okay. There are, we did provide over $115,000 in scholarships and fellowships and awards last year. So that's a lot of money that is available that you can apply for. That I counted up how many was given, and last year there were 35 scholarships, 7 fellowships, and 6 awards. I believe that there may not be exactly that many that you can apply for. I think some of them, a couple people got, 2 people might have gotten a fellowship or an award. So that's why there may not be exactly that number, but that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of opportunities for you to be able to get that information to you, that money that you can use. Okay. Let me just say a couple things before this, that remember there are some basic requirements for those awards. One thing, there is electronic application, and you need to be sure and fill that out. And that has to be done by March 1st, 2025, and no later than 11:59 Eastern Time. You have to be sure you have all those supporting documents sent in at least 10 days, and we'll re-say this as it goes on. Those are your transcripts and your recommendations, and we'll talk more about that. All parts of the application have to be filled out. You know, just read those directions and fill everything that you can. One thing that Melissa has said she's had some issue, people have called about, is they've had problems pulling it up. And so if you could talk to your, and this is not anywhere in the PowerPoint, so if you don't, you might jot this down somewhere, that you might ask your IT department to add the jotform.com and the phiu.org domain names to the safe sender list. So let me say that one more time. That ask your IT department to add the jotform.com and the phiu.org domain names to your safe sender list so you can make sure that they get to you. And then sometimes people have had problems pulling things up, and if you change your browser, that might help with the application. Okay. So, all right. So before we start in looking at the applications and what we need to do, I thought this was really a neat little quote. It says, the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. You have to work to be successful. You got to work on the application, filling it out, you know, to be successful and getting it, pushing the submit button and getting it turned in. So, you know, they're sort of, this was the slide, anyways. And so that's one thing to remember. These are the things I just mentioned. Let me re-glance at these. At the bottom there, it says one application to be filled out for scholarships, but a separate application to be submitted for awards. There's one application for all the scholarships. There's one application for all of the fellowships. And then there's one application for the awards. Okay, so make sure that you realize that you don't have to submit it multiple ones. You can just click on all those scholarships you want to apply for, click on those fellowships that you want to apply for that you fit into the criteria. So make sure you read the criteria. And I haven't gone through here, and we're not going to show the application till the very end, but look at the criteria. Some might just be for nutrition people. Some things might just be for education people. So be sure and glance at that. Okay. So our goal is to be successful. In order to succeed, we must first believe that we can. So, I remember years ago, I had heard Zig Ziglar or somebody say, continue to say, I know I can, I know I can, I know I can, believe in myself, believe in myself, believe in myself. I don't know if I really did that or not, but anyways, it sounds good, but you really do need to do that. You need to try to believe who you are and believe in yourself, and self-doubt's so easy, but don't doubt yourself. Get help, get assistance. One thing I might suggest you to do is that and I did this a lot when I was in my professional world, besides just working on scholarships or things that I was applying for, is that I would keep a file, and every time maybe I got on a committee for an organization, I got an office at an organization, I would write it in, type it in. If I got an award, I would go to that file and I would type it in. I would make all my little categories of things. If I got a job or did some volunteer work, did a service project, I would type that in, because I had to always make a reference file of what I had done. And I would suggest for you to do that. Maybe you've got that somewhere else that you can use for this year when you're filling out your application, but start that now. So you'll have that for every year, so that you go, oh yeah, what did I do? I remember I was on that committee and I helped with bringing, volunteer things to a recipe project we were doing. Well, write it down so you'll remember. Just jot it down. And if you get into a phase of doing that, maybe once a month, every couple weeks, or just when you're piddling around on the computer, go to that file and put in what you've done. That's just a suggestion, hopefully for success for later. Okay. All right, so we're weaving our tapestry. This is changed a tad from a quote that I found on this website, and I was just amazed it went right with what we were doing. So let me read this just real briefly. Your application is like a tapestry intricately woven with the threads of your life experiences, aspirations, and personal growth. This guide is your loom. Oh, we have a loom. Here's our loom. Is our loom, offering a variety of themes and ideas to weave a compelling thought process and can show your uniqueness. Let us look at these themes and reweave the information that makes you stand out on application. I think that just goes right with what we were talking about. So, okay, next. So, benefits of those scholarships. We all know these are the benefits. We can use that financing for support to reach goals, to increase our skills, increase our education, so that we can have the career, the profession that we desire to have. Finances, plans, what plans we might want. So those are all benefits. Why would we want to apply? And this would be for scholarships, fellowships, and awards. This was just printed out and it said scholarships. Okay. So let's start weaving those tapestry threads. Any questions so far? Additions? Okay. So as we're weaving our tapestry, just a few things to remember. It is an electronic application. It's on the phiu.org site, and we'll go look at that later if you want to look at it. You have to have a Greek track account to have access. I mean, that's a must. I mean, I was trying to get in there. I said, okay, nope, I got to get into my Greek track, account. And if you don't have a Greek track account, make sure you have one. You have to be a Phi Upsilon Omicron member of a chapter. And that's a big big calling card to even become a Phi U member, that there's scholarships and fellowships and awards. So be sure you're that. I did have a question. Melissa and I talked about this the other day. What if you are like a freshman and you're a junior and you got, initiated into Phi U, and then something came up and you transferred to another university and they have a Phi U chapter. So, you need to either let your advisor or let Melissa know that you're going to be involved in this other Phi U chapter, or you could possibly use either one of those chapters as your membership. Is that correct, Melissa? Is that what we decided? Yes. Okay, she's shaking her head, yes. So, but be sure that you are a member and you are involved in that organization at your local university. Need to be a graduate student or whatever. Let me see what else. Was there something else on that slide? And then it just has the scholarships. Thank you. Scholarships are for undergraduate members. Fellowships are for graduate members. Awards are for undergraduate members. But read those directions, because I think there might be some that have a variation there. So look at the guidelines. Those are the three different ones we're looking at that point in time. Okay. So transcripts that you need to have and need to acquire, they need to go and it's on the applications. The awards, you do not have to have a transcript sent. Okay, that's not part on the application. But the fellowships and the scholarships, you do have to have a transcript. It has to be official. And to be official, what does it have to come from? I've got it in black. It's got to come, highlighted. It's got to come from the register of the university. So you need to talk to them. I know there's a fee usually. Pay, unfortunately, and pay for that and have them send it to the national office. Okay. And we do have written down here, and this is really right off the directions that you have with your applications. It'd be good if they send it and they put your name and scholarship transcript, or your name and fellowship transcript, so they know that's coming. And I'm sorry, my dog is whining behind me, so just ignore the dog. Anyhow, any other questions about transcript? Remember, you don't need a transcript for the award application. But if you're going to, okay. I was going to say something else now. Any other questions? Okay, next. All right. So who can I use as a recommendation? This is always an interesting challenge. And I thought this was sort of a neat quote. It says, do good for others and it will come back in unexpected ways. And, sometimes I had students, I would get a notice from someone saying, will you give so-and-so a recommendation? And I had to really go back on my memory. Who is this person that wants me to give a recommendation? And sometimes I said yes, and sometimes I said no, because I couldn't remember. The key thing is ask those people before you write it down. But we're going to have so do good to others. If you do good to others, they'll come back and do good to you. We're going to have some help with this topic. So I'm going to step out of the PowerPoint for a minute and introduce Dr. Lindsay Barnhart, and she's from the Tau Phi U chapter. We've just been at her school at the University of Wisconsin-Stout at Conclave. Thank you so much for having us for Conclave. It was so wonderful. And but she's going to share a little bit about her thoughts about recommendations.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Wonderful to see so many faces as well. So as an advisor, you know that advisors are required to do one of the letters of recommendation. So I receive a lot of those requests from students. And one of the things I'll say from an advisor perspective that I ask students to do is send me their resume. So that would be the first thing. And as Diana was saying, if you're kind of keeping things up to date as you do things, that makes it easy. We know who you are in Phi U, especially if you're active members, but we might not know who you are as much outside of Phi U. So we know you're all very, very active in all of the things that you do. That's part of the reason why you're a part of Phi U. So we know that you're doing that great work. So if you're giving us that resume, that helps us out. And then just any additional information that you can send beyond your resume, any details about things that you're involved in. It just helps us write those letters. It's a lot easier for us, and it makes it more enjoyable as well. We're happy to help you out for sure, because we want to support you in your financial journey in college, but it does take some time. So that definitely helps us out as advisors. That same would be true for those that you're asking to recommend as well, that second recommender. I always tell my students to work on finding that professor or somebody at the university that you have a relationship with, just as Diana said. If you're asking somebody that it's been 3.5 years since you've seen them, now that you're in grad school, that we have a lot of students that go through our programs. So jogging our memory, it could take a while to get back there. So ensuring that you have that relationship with them and that it's a positive one. I've also had students ask me for a recommendation, and sometimes I'm just like, I don't know if I can necessarily give you the recommendation that you might want me to, which it's important to be honest as well. It was hard for me the first time to say I didn't feel comfortable, but I think this was in a more job related sense, but still something important to be thinking about, that you have a good positive relationship with this person and you're going to get a good recommendation from them, and supplying them just the same with all of the information, resume, so on and so forth, and asking before. I think Diana said that as well. Before you submit that application, make sure you're connecting with that person so it's not a surprise, even though you have a really good relationship with them and you're pretty sure they're going to say yes. Still make sure that that communication is happening first. It's just a professionalism component that you want to be sure that you're focusing on. I think that's all. I won't take too much time unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Lindsay. We appreciate it. So I guess we'll go back to the presentation. Lindsay, if you have anything about service when we get to that, you can add if you want. Okay, thanks. All right, so as she had mentioned and we had already talked about, we're again threading our tapestry, with another thread, and those recommendations are part of that application. And as she mentioned, there are 2 letters of recommendation. They do have to be official and confidential, and there's a certain ways they have to be submitted, and we'll look at those for a minute. And one letter, as she mentioned, does come from the current Phi U chapter advisor, for which you are a member. So collegiates and graduates, you need to know those people. You need to meet those people. You need to attend things, and so you know them and they know you. Because I know I've had students in organizations and I know them, but I may not know them very well because they really weren't involved in a lot of things or didn't take any leadership, positions. And so it was a little challenging, in some situations. The other one has to be, notice it says there, from a faculty member, maybe a former, person that you've had for a course, to that effect. The letters do need to address character, leadership, service, and abilities. So remember, that is a key thing. Now, there are different scholarships, and financial need is something to be addressed, and Dr. Miller is going to address finances in a little bit. But if one of your recommendation individuals have any knowledge of that could be added to those letters. And these are the scholarships listed. I have down here that finances is a part of it, and we'll come back and talk about those scholarships in a few minutes. But so that could be a possibility with that. One thing, as Lindsay had mentioned, you never know, someone might say no, like I said, and what if they say no? You will be notified that they have said no. And so then what you need to do is choose somebody else and send their name, their email, their information to Melissa at National Office, right? Correct, Melissa? And then she will submit the information to that person. So, but try to, that probably doesn't happen very often, but you never know. So, okay, next. And this is, I know this is a lot of words and you don't want to read through all of that, but I will highlight some of that, that those letters have to be for those recommendations. You're going to actually just submit their information, the person's name and their contact information to National Office. That's what will be on your application. Nationals will send them email for you to recommend or not recommend. Notice it says, if the reference does not recommend, the applicant will receive an email that the request has been denied, as I just mentioned. If the reference, and this is important, that if the reference recommends the applicant, they will receive a second email, excuse me, requesting they click on a link to complete a letter of recommendation form. So the letter of recommendation form is not to be sent to Nationals until they get this second email and they get the jot form information on that. So that's real important. So you might tell those people who you've asked to write a recommendation for you, sort of this process. Excuse me, let me get a sec. Excuse me, thank you. The reference will be prompted to submit their recommendation through a jot form. Now, there is a comment box that comes up, but they don't put their recommendation in that comment box. There will be another item that will come up and it'll say attach, correct? Attach, and that is what they will attach their recommendation to. And then it will be submitted. Okay. So remember, all the letters, they're letters. You need to get your application in by March 10th, by March 1st. The recommendations need to be in the office by March 10th. Also, the transcripts. Again, make sure your membership is active. Any questions? Okay. All right, so service is, a big part of Phi Upsilon Omicron, and that is a part of professional services, part of the application. And I thought this was a really neat quote. At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back And that's what our professional projects are all about. You know, that's what your little maybe other service projects you do in your community is all about. That's an extra time that you put out is all about. And so we want to know about that. We want to know what you've been involved in, what the students, and again, if you've kept a chart of all your activities, then you can just go back and do this. Now, one thing I want to mention at the very end of your application, it does talk about how you can fill out part of this and save it, and then come back and complete it. So remember that you can do that. Don't hit submit until you filled out the whole thing. Make a copy of what you've all written down before you submit it. Now, one thing I might suggest, and I've read this and I've seen this other places, is that some people go through the whole application and just sort of type down what they want to fill it out, how they want to fill it out separately, so they can think about it. I'm so sorry. And then they'll already have that information, and then you can sit and fill it out. And you don't have to go back and forth all the time. We still might want to fill it out some and go back and review it before you submit it. That might save a little bit of time. Okay. So these are the 3 categories that are on the application that you need to put information for. And the Phi Upsilon Omicron, what you've been involved in. I'm so sorry. Other FCS organizations, if you were in a textiles organization, nutrition sciences organization, what you've done in those organizations, and then anything on campus or in the community. If you worked with Red Cross in the community, if you've worked with, we have our Daily Bread, which is the food volunteer thing in our community, those types of areas, and provide that information. Lindsay, do you have anything, any detail to this that you want to add?
Sorry, lost my microphone button.
You're good.
I mean, I guess beyond just saying be involved and talk about your involvement, I think it's just important to have those personal reflections on what the service means to you and how it supported you as a professional. Like the quote that Diana shared, the idea of building other people up beyond yourself, but it is supporting yourself as a professional and all of the service that you're doing. So as you're learning and growing through these experiences, adding that component that I'm not just doing this thing, I'm not just serving food for these people, it's helping me in this way and it's helping these people in this way. So I think having the reflection beyond the activity that you're doing and to be involved as much as you can. I'll just give a little hint from our chapter. We do a service project nearly every meeting that we have. So rather than having a focus on something big, we do little service projects throughout. It's just something that's worked for our chapter. So it's something that makes it easier for students to be involved with as well, because they're there and at the meeting. It's not a special time to meet. So something to consider as well to help you all become involved in service and make it a more accessible component to your chapter.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from anyone else? Again, it's very important to remember what you were involved in the past in all these different categories, and make sure you jot those things down. All right. So next is really our thoughts about writing a goal statement. And so I'm going to have Dr. Susan Miller, who is our Phi U National President. And will you share some things with the rest of us, Ms. Miller?
Yes, I will. And Diana, thank you so much. And Lindsay, and for participating in this, and all of you. It is a really heartwarming to see so many people here this evening. And I served on what Diana does for several years, and that's probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life, was to be able to award students scholarships to help them get their education. It's so wonderful when we get to see you and meet you at Conclave. So thank you for having me. I'm just going to make a few comments. My first one is, if you don't apply, you don't get. So you've got to apply in order to get it. So yes, it's a fairly lengthy application, but it's worth it. It's very much worth it in the end. So I would highly encourage you to apply and be detailed. I had rather see you give more information than not enough information. Be involved, as Lindsay and Diana have mentioned, but be sure you detail that. And if it needs explanations or anything, put that in there so that totally the committee who is looking at your application totally understands what you have done. Just like Lindsay said, it's not just that I did this, but what did I get from doing this, and who all did it enrich, and that sort of thing. And another comment, just sell yourself. You want to sell yourself. So I'm going to go back, if you don't mind, and just mention a little bit about the transcripts. And she did a great job, and that was a great slide she had up there about the transcripts. But you do have to go through your registrar at the university, and then most universities use a third party to send the transcript. And so, and I can tell you that from personal experience. And so you want to do it, I'd say, sooner rather than later. However, not too terribly long, 2 or 3 years ago, I had to get a transcript for something. I can't even remember what it was. And it was a Sunday afternoon. And I have all of my degrees from Oklahoma State University. And so I sat here at my computer, and you can do it online. And I went online. Believe it or not, I was able to do it online. I wasn't sure, but anyway, I went through the process, and it goes to something called Parchment at Oklahoma State University. Or at that time it did. So I can't tell you what the third party might be for your university. And literally, but please don't take this, do it sooner rather than later. Remember that part of this for sure. But do you know that I got that transcript from Parchment within about 2 hours after I submitted that, and it went to Parchment and it came back. So just know that it may be a third party involved in the transcript process. I don't know if all universities have that or not, but I know that is very commonplace for them. That they talked about the applications, you might have to change your browser, and Melissa, and I see Sally on there, and Lindsay, you can chime in here. I'm thinking that you really can't do this on the phone, on your cell phone. Can you fill out this application?
We have the mobile feature enabled, but I would strongly encourage to do it from a computer. I think that it would be much better. And yes, sometimes you do have to switch your browser. And the other recommendation I'd had, I'm not sure if it's been mentioned, so I apologize, is to maybe clear your cache or before you even start. That would just be good to kind of reset things. And I think Sonia has a question.
Sonia has something, yes.
I was going to say, I've had students in the past who have tried to submit the application via their phone. It has not worked. And
yes,
even with the app, it sometimes, so guys, get to your computer labs, use your tablet, but do not use your phone.
So that's the reason I had the same experience. So that's the reason I wanted to make that comment. It'd be better just to do it from the computer and not try to do it from the phone. And the last thing I would like to mention is that financial statement. And so there are certain scholarships that require a financial statement. And even though you might not be applying for one of those scholarships, I would encourage you to go ahead and fill out the financial statement, because sometimes they're not people that have applied that can get those scholarships, and we can pull from the pool, but we cannot give it to you if you have not filled out a financial statement. So when I was doing it, it was sad because I couldn't give some that I wanted to give, and they hadn't applied for that particular one, but I was able to move them into that one in order for them to get one, but they did not have a financial statement. So I would just encourage you to go ahead and fill it out. It's very confidential. It is only the people that are looking at that. And there was mentioned that if your recommendations know a little bit about your financial needs, that they don't give your amounts of money or anything like that, but I've had that expressed and read in people's letters of recommendation, and that does make a big difference. So if you have questions for me, those were my tidbits of information. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I guess we can go back. So as we're weaving our tapestry or our life or our application, filling it out, as she mentioned, the goal statement about yourself, feeling good about yourself, selling yourself, that's part of writing your goal statement. And there is a common thought process of just writing a goal statement. So, and it does say on the application, it has to be 500 words or less. Again, something else you need to be working on separate from the application in a Word document or somewhere. So you've got your thoughts together, because it'll be attached. And I was thinking, as I have on here in script, this statement is your loom to weaving your personal tapestry. So think of it as your loom. Every color, every thread that you use is maybe one other little thing in your life or your personal experiences that you can put on your goal. So there was a website, topuniversities.com, talked about writing goal statements. So these are just some thought processes that I thought were good about you individually thinking about writing a goal statement. It says, 1, be sure you read the directions, 500 words or less. Okay, read the directions. Start with a compelling introduction, insight that grabs attention. What's something, that you can grab person's attention when they're starting to read this about you. Use your inner voice. So show existing knowledge of the subject, existing knowledge of Phi Upsilon Omicron, acknowledge about your skills personally. What are your skills? What are your ambitions? What do you want to do? What do you want to use that finances for to help you achieve your future goals? I remember when I was in college as an undergraduate, I had goals, but I really wasn't too sure about some of those goals, and it took me a little while to sort of focus in. But as I was a junior, senior, I knew I wanted to teach, and I knew I had some skill sets that maybe would have worked, because by that time I sort of was out of my major shy period. And so I thought, well, I could do some speaking and some putting content together. And so think about what are those skills that you have. Avoid cliches, bring your unique personality to life, but don't, use cliches and little statements that really aren't professional. Give good examples to support your ideas. Examples of a fact stated, including experiences that you've had. Maybe you will write helped for you to reach those goals, things for in the future, what motivates you, how you developed a certain belief or a thought process. So those are just some generic things just to think about as you're writing that goal statement, to plug in, that is plugged in to that application. Okay. So there are listings. You can go to the website, and there are our Phi U website, and listings of the different scholarships on the applications. It does have the listings of the scholarships that you can apply for. It does have the listings of the fellowships on the fellowship application that you can apply for. Identify all of those that you want, as I had mentioned earlier, that you want to apply for, all those scholarships, all those fellowships, all those awards that you want to apply for that you would fit in. Again, one application for all the scholarships, one application for all the fellowships, one application for all the awards. Again, as was mentioned about the finances, that you do have, as an undergraduate, you do have to be enrolled for the full 2025, 2026 school year. You need to, and if you're going to apply for these scholarships that are listed here in bold, those are the ones that if you click on them, then the financial information boxes will populate. They will come up, and that's where you would put in your information. Okay. And then, but they will only show for those if you clicked on those. And again, as Dr. Miller had mentioned, that if you don't give us the information, then you cannot be considered at all. So do it, even if you think you may not want to apply for those. But notice there that it says some scholarships are as much as $7,100. That's a lot of money. That would pay for quite a bit. Okay. All right. We talked, a lot of things we've talked about are generic, but some are specific to scholarships. But let's look at the fellowship application just for a minute. And those are for graduate students. And you do have to, again, like the others, you do have to have a transcript, has to be sent. Now, if your transcript, and this is the same as an undergraduate, if your transcript has all the universities for which you've taken classes at, then you can have that one sent. But if you have classes that you've taken at a junior college and you've taken at a four-year college, or you've gone to 2 four-year colleges, and they're not all put onto the one transcript, you need to have one sent from each one of those universities. So don't forget that, to do that. With a fellowship application, you do need 2 recommendations. One is from a current or previous academic advisor, and one is from a current or previous professor. Does not have to come from a Phi U advisor. The application says that it could, but if they're academic advisor or if they're a previous professor. Okay. Some things say that you have to, some fellowships that you might mark say you need to include your research plans, and so that is populated again, attached. Some say you need objectives on some fellowships, and so if you click on that, the box will come up, and you need to list the objectives that you have for that specific fellowship. So think about that, look at those, read what those are about before you click on those. All right. And just the last thing there on the fellowship applications, you do have to be enrolled for the whole year or for the fall of that time. It says here, okay. Award applications, as we've said before, transcripts are not required. one application, as we've said multiple times, for all the awards. 2 recommendations are required, as in other things. One from your chapter advisor. So this again, we're going back. You have to have it from a Phi U advisor and from another faculty member. Okay. One thing though that Melissa did mention, and she's just text on here, is that graduating seniors are eligible for awards, and they can apply for awards. And if you're a graduating senior and going to go to graduate school, you can apply for these awards. So, and they can apply for fellowships too if they're entered into a graduate program. So make sure that you have students, if you have a student who is a graduating senior, and that they can apply for awards. Anything else, Melissa, you want to add about that? Or Sonia, we good? Okay. All right, so we're about done filling out our applications. We were about done weaving our tapestry, and you know, I like to look at this lots of times, this little diagram, because you know what we need to, you need to plan. If you haven't already started filling out your application, you need to plan it and do it step by step. You know, sometimes they go, oh, I really need to fill this out. I really don't want to do it. I don't know if I can have time to do it. But then finally you get into doing it. And, you know, I want to do it. How will I go about it? I'll try to do it. I can do it. I will. And it's completed. So our tapestry is done. So next. All right. So we've got our tapestry completed. We have filled out the application. We've got our transcripts being sent to nationals. We've got our recommendations have accepted, as far as we know, that we've turned in, and they're doing their thing, getting those turned in by the March 10th. And so we're about finished at this point of our application process. Susan or Lindsay, do you all have anything else to add at this point? Excuse me.
I was just gonna, and Melissa, you may correct me if I'm wrong. I think that the award that graduating seniors can apply even if they're not going on and working on their masters.
Mhm.
So the fellowships are for people that are working on their masters, and then the awards and scholarship. Well, now graduating senior can't apply for a scholarship. They can only apply for an award or a fellowship if they are going on and work for their masters. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did I say that correctly?
Yes. And I'll just kind of recap again. So scholarships are for undergraduates who will be returning in the fall semester. And then awards would be for graduating seniors or students who are going on to pursue a graduate degree. So, but if you are going on to pursue a graduate degree, in addition to applying for an award, you will want to go ahead and apply for a fellowship. So you can put the school that you are hoping to be admitted into your application, and then confirm that later. And then of course, if you're already in a graduate program, you would also, if you're going to be returning in the fall, you would want to apply for a fellowship. And I think Sonia has a question.
Just real quick, I know Susan, you had mentioned master's degree on the fellowships. We do have some fellowships that are for PhD students. So
yes, I'm sorry. Yes,
guys,
any graduate.
Now, make sure that you check that, because again, PhD students really could use the funds. So
they could.
I think we've got like 3 fellowships that are specifically listed for PhD students. So
Thank you, everyone.
If I
Anything
can just,
else?
one quick thing, additionally is working together as a chapter. That's something that our president works towards, is answering any questions and working together on the scholarship. So if that's something that would be beneficial for you as well. And I see your hand, Sally, but I just have to say, I have 3 checks that I get to give to students. So it's work, but this is the most fun thing, that I get to give these 3 checks
Mhm.
to students on Monday. So fill them out so you can get one of these envelopes.
That was great.
Yeah, whoever's moderating, I was just going to say that on the awards, the students need to read the characteristics and the specific criteria for each one of those awards, because many times you're not applying for all the awards that you actually are qualified for because you're not reading them in detail. So make sure that you check off all of those that apply to you, not just one, because you eliminate your ability to be considered if you do not check all of those awards that you have those qualifications.
Good, thank you.
Also, Vicky has a question.
Yes, I'm a student. I have a really quick question. So if I was applying for the award and the fellowship, and I asked one of the Phi U advisors at my school for a letter of recommendation, could they use the same letter of recommendation twice for that award and that fellowship?
If it's okay, I'll jump in to answer that, Vicki. That's a great question. Thank you for asking it. So they can use the same letter. I would strongly encourage them to use the correct term. So to say, I'm recommending Vicki for an award, or I'm recommending Vicki for a fellowship. It just helps keep everything straight. It'll be attached to the correct application because there are 2 different recommendation forms, but basically they can, unless there's something specific. So just as Diana had talked about earlier, if it's one of those scholarships that like addresses financial need or something like that, they may need to be more specific in something versus another. But for a fellowship and an award, I think that would be fun. But they would submit 2 different ones. They could just reuse the same letter. That would be fun.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone being involved and giving good information. So I guess we'll just go on to the last slide.
Diana,
Yes, ma'am.
Bailey does have a question in the chat. If you don't mind.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I haven't looked at the chat questions.
Yeah, no problem. Bailey
What
is
is it?
asking if there's any grants or funding for those who are doing thesis or research studies.
Those would have to look at the fellowships and read the directions on the fellowships. And Sally had said, making sure that you're reading and making sure there's something that is associated maybe with the major or the area for which you're working on, because some do say things, but yes, there are. You just have to read those under the fellowship section. Thank you for looking at the chats, paying attention to that. All right, anyone else?
I think I was supposed to be helping out with that. I'm sorry,
Okay, that's
Melissa.
okay. No,
And
good.
Bailey too. I'm
We're
sorry.
good.
Thank
Okay.
you, Lindsay.
Okay. All right, just to end us all up on our check sheet that Melissa has for us. Make sure ensure everyone who is involved, your membership is active in your Phi U chapter. You have an active Greek track. You can sign in. You can add your job form to your safe sender list. We said talk to your IT people at the very beginning of this to make sure that they can add that to a safe sender list so that you can access it easily or get responses. Remember everything, and I know this says fellowship, but everything needs to be due by March 1st. So it all needs to be turned in by then. Be sure you request those transcripts early, as Dr. Miller was talking about that. And inform your recommenders, the electronic process, that they just don't write it and automatically send it to national office, that they need to get those emails and send it that way. And a good question about if you have someone giving you a recommendation for more than one of these categories, making sure they do address it to the right, either scholarships or just to the awards or just to the fellowships. I know just a back experience when I was teaching, and I would get applications for jobs, and I would sometimes get professionals that would send me application, and it wasn't even, it was mailed to our university, but on the letter it wouldn't even say the university or even the job they were applying for, so you knew they were mass applying for jobs, and
Yeah.
they just hadn't proved it. So make sure that whoever is giving those recommendations are doing it to the appropriate person, and even yourself when you're doing things, making sure you're doing it to the appropriate person and appropriate area that you're applying it for. And again, those transcripts and those recommendations need to be turned in at least 10 days after the applications have been turned in. So they are all needed by March 10th, and all these dates are going to be here quickly, and we know, and this is February 4th. So we hopefully you're working on that. If not, get started. So we've woven our tapestry. Well, this one's not done yet, but we've been getting our tapestry woven personally, to fill out your applications, to know that you will succeed, and know that you will get it turned in, and then hopefully you'll be selected as a scholarship winner. So thank you, everyone. I know that our time is up now, Melissa. So any other questions? Thank you for listening and for so many people being here. Hopefully you just got reintegrated of some information, some new ideas. Melissa, is there any announcements that you need to make before we all depart?
Well, Diana, you and Susan and Lindsay have all done a fabulous job clarifying, and thank you, Sonia and Sally and others, for your comments. So it's definitely worth it. As we pointed out, some of our scholarships are over $7,000, and we want you to have a chance to receive one of those to help with your education. And so thank you for being a part of Phi U, and you're what makes our organization so unique, so special, and truly a family. So we appreciate you being here tonight, and we wish you all the best of luck.
Good
Could
luck,
I say
everyone.
something? Could I say something? We do have on February 25th, we have our Founders Day. So just as an announcement, and we would love for you all to come and join us for that. It's going to be a fun event, and kind of talk about our history and present and future. And also we give away a lot of really good door prizes, but you have to be in attendance to get those. So try to come. It's February 25th at 6 o'clock as well. I believe I'm correct on that time. And then to each of you, I wish you the very best, and filling out your applications, and good luck to all of you.